Alrighty, perfecto. Heya Heya. Well, I'm back. Alrighty, so we're looking at new characters. Birgitta. It wasn't. Sounds exactly like the Overwatch character. And a Dragon Bride Senya. So let's just first look at Dragon Bride Senya. She's the newest one. She's a light knight of the Psychotory Zodiac. If you're talking about her stat line, it's the same stat line as someone like Ambitious Taiwan. It's the same exact stat line. It's known for its relatively middle of the road speed. 104 is not really that amazing. 6,840 HP is decent. Defense is 600 to around 700. It's pretty nice. Her attack is really low, but spoiler alert, she's not an attack scaler, so this doesn't matter. She has no crit chance or crit damage, no effectiveness or effect resistance. Dual attack chance is base 3%. Input target concentration is 18% HP, and then input release is 10.8% HP for the whole team. So overall, this is a really good stat line. It's a really tanky stat line, all things considered. Speed is pretty run-of-the-mill. Defense is quite good. HP is also quite good. Attack is pretty low, but like I said, it doesn't matter. Anyways, that's up. Now let's go look at her skills. So, the biggest one here is that increases the amount of HP by 10%. So she basically has she has the same passive as not the same passive. She has the same effect as some of the other effects. So Prayer to Solitude or whatever Lila's other effect is. It gains 10% max HP on top of the max HP it is. We have to see how this works, but what this looks like to be is like a normal Lila's artifact or Prayer of Solitude, like Leaf's artifact, because what it would do is that it would increase max HP at the start of the battle. So what it means is that this 10% HP is kind of inaccurate per se. It's like if you say let's just say your Moonlight Senya is 30,000 HP, she gains additional 3,000 HP at the start of it because she started off at 3,000 HP. So this is really nice. This allows her to be kind of tanky innately, which is pretty amazing. That's part 1. Health and allies except for the back row, except for the caster. It's 50% or less after being attacked. This part all debuffs and caster and ally in the back row activates Battle Prayer. Can only activate once every 4 or 3 turns. Depends on Nola. So this one here is actually a potential artifact, so it's kind of basically it's a better version of A-Ross. So basically so it grants a barrier to the caster. Okay, so let's just read Battle Prayer first. Battle Prayer grants a barrier to the caster, the ally in the back row for 2 turns, grants Oath of Punishment to the caster for 2 turns before reset skill cooldown to the caster. Barrier strength increase proportion to the caster's message. So basically, what happens, this is like a Karina. So this is like a Karina plus A-Ross combined. So Karina activates whenever someone in the back row takes 50% more damage, 50% or less after being attacked. So this doesn't include things like true damage, or not true damage. Doesn't include fits damage. So if fits damage brings something below 50% HP, that's not considered an attack, and so as a result, this won't really activate. But if an ally stuff in the back row is attacked, then she activates. She grants a pretty. It depends on the barrier, but it seems like it's a massive barrier. She grants herself over punishment. She does not grant the person in the back, only herself. In addition, she also resets cooldown the caster, meaning she cannot be reset by something like Faithless Litica. So Faithless Litica could not just straight out reset her. They can't fully reset her skill 3. The only thing is that, and on top of that, it looks like the Overpunishment also grants her being unaffected by debuffs or some form of forfeits. The home forfeits in this case most likely mean cooldown resets. It most likely mean cooldown resets. It means some random unbuffables, and stuff like that. So basically, since she resets cooldown and then grants herself Overpunishment, actually, oh, never mind. So she got over punishment and then resets cooldown, which basically means that you cannot stop her. So once she activates you, you just straight up cannot stop her. Over punishment also deals additional 2,500 fits damage. So this is basically a cascade. So if you think about Moonlight DK Shroom has something called Cascade. Cascade is this is basically just Cascade. It does 2,500 fits damage. It can hit on anyone. If you hit an AoE, it does 10,000 fits damage. Assuming you hit 4 people, so on, so on. So this is actually really strong. The fact that she can be unaffected by debuffs or suffer 4 fits is basically just equivalent to Demon Mode on Rem, or to Benamaru's activation. Because the idea is that they cannot be stopped, and the only issue here is that even though you might think she doesn't seem to be that good as a knight, she doesn't seem to be good with like Aureus, and that's just because she doesn't really provide much other than a barrier so far. So she just plants a barrier to the ally in the back row. This is basically Aros skill 3, skill 2. Actually it's not Aros skill 3. It's Aros's skill tree awakening. It's pretty nice. It grants allows the ally in the background to basically probably survive 1 or 2 more hits. Just note this barrier can be stripped, and this barrier is for 2 turns. And then, based on the demo we were given, we know that the let's see. So we see Midnight Lilius 7,841. They hits Biblis for 15,000 damage. So this brings her below 50% HP. And then the Moonlight Senya activates, and that's a pretty thick barrier. So if you want to estimate about the barrier, 15,000 damage did about 70% of HP, and this is about half. The barrier is pretty similar to about like half of her HP. So based on that, it seems that the barrier ratio is pretty close to, like, let's say Biblis here has like 22,000. That's what we're gonna assume. Biblis here has around 22,000. This is probably around like 11,000, 12,000 barriers. This is like a Ross tier of barriers. This is pretty massive. And we see, and then as a result, we also see that she's unaffected by debuff. So you see here, she's immune to the sleep. She's immune to venom. She's gonna be immune to anything like that's not directly applied from a skill. So she's not immune to injury per se, but she's immune to the venom, which basically grants immunity, which is actually pretty funny. So. And also, it's pretty funny that it's also a hand to say stop. You know. Okay. Next part. Oh, that's not what I need to do. Skill 3. So skill 3, it pierces through to attack the enemy. Increases common units of the caster down on the back row by 30%. Penetrates target defense. Cannot trigger a crit. Damage dealt proportional to the caster's max HP. When the caster is granted oath of punishment, attack all enemies. Now, of course, oath of punishment, just to review, cannot be affected by any debuffs or harmful effects. Attacking on a barrier turn deals additional 2,500 fits damage to the target. And of course, this is going to be happy for AoEs. Soulbend effect increases damage dealt. And it's a 5 to 4 turn cooldown, depending on what god. So it's the cooldown here, the biggest one. The cooldown here lines up with the skill 2. It means that anytime her skill 3 is off cooldown, skill 2 is off cooldown. Even though her skill 2 resets cooldowns, her skill 3 also basically comes off on line 2, so it's pretty amazing. So the biggest point here is that she only does a single target damage, so she only increases common units to the caster and ally in the background by 30%. So the common units here probably wouldn't matter much in most games, and that's just because thinking about it, most of the time that person in the backline is probably dead, or they're probably just gone. Because since Moonlight Senya doesn't provide any form of protection other than barrier, they probably are just dead. Like, that's it. So the 30% for the caster is pretty nice. 30% of the back row is niche, unless somehow that person survives. Penetrate target defense, which is normal for something that can't crit. And then it's a single. This is a single target. It looks like it's a single target skill. When the caster is granted oath of punishment, when the caster is granted its buff from the 50% from the skill 2 here, it grants her the power to hit all enemies, so she can do 10,000 fist damage. Now this is actually based on what we see in the demo, because we do know her max HP, which is around 37,000 HP, which is insane. She did pretty much 14 grand, 12 grand. It's interesting why she does more damage to Death Dealer Ray other than light elemental advantage. But I think this might be light elemental advantage. But she does more damage to Death Dealer Ray. And you can see it does a pretty heavy chunk. It looks like it does about 33% of her max HP. That's pretty insane. That's a lot of max HP to hit. That's a pretty big chunk basically. And then you also see after the Millennium counters and salvos, you see the additional 2500 or 10,000 total fits damage. So you see 10,000 total fits damage. What it kind of says here for the demo is that they don't show us what happens if you play 3F. So the thing about it is like she's a massive HP skill. We know her skill to be 10% extra additional HP. The thing about it is what happens if she has 10,000 fits damage. So she has 10,000 fits damage. She has what happens? She has 3F. 3F would probably do an additional 3,000 here. So what that Melanie probably would have just instantly died, regardless of if she salvoed or not. They would have done an additional 3,000 damage, which is pretty hilarious. So other than that, she's pretty funny. Other than that, the last thing, one step, her like normal Senya S1. So she pushes the enemy with a tier with a single target skill. She increases speed of the caster, and she also increases damage dealt to the portfolio of the caster as HP. So basically, this is just a basic S1. It has no stun, it has no control. It just increases speed like LOK, and it just does more damage for portfolio of the caster as HP. That's it. It's basically an LOK S1. It's not really the best. It's nice because it increases her speed, meaning she can probably get her turn faster. What it really means is that she's kind of like pretty much dead on a dead turn on S1. She doesn't really do much unless the damage on this thing is ridiculous. Oh, she has 3F. She doesn't really do much. So like, but especially with 3F, she probably would destroy like as a single target. So let's see the damage here. 4,000 damage. So that's pretty much like about 10% of her max HP, plus or minus a few bit because she has attack. Because of course she has a bit of attack into her kit. So, yep. So she has pretty high, decently good bruiser tank stats. She did have the unstoppable buff, which is pretty strong here. Other than that, yeah, she seems relatively weak to injury, so like Moonlight Shoe, but you're not gonna really play into Moonlight Shoe. I mean, so basically in conclusion, for a kit, there's multiple ways to use this. So she seems really good when paired with like something like Karina, because the idea is that she covers Karina's weaknesses. So Karina's weakness is that she herself does not activate on herself. So if Karina herself stays below 50% HP, she doesn't just activate, right? So you can play her and then Moonlight Senya. You can basically put her in the back row and basically tell a cleave opponent that you basically tell them what can they do. If they hit someone like Karina then Moonlight Senya activates. She does like 14,000 damage, and she does an additional 7,050 damage on top of that. So she's basically just gonna nuke you. She's gonna nuke your cleave opponent, and then. But I mean, the opposite is true. If she's if like Senya's the one who gets focused, Karina activates, and then Karina will go off and then also nuke your opponent, which is also pretty hilarious. So what we'll see here is that Luna Senya seems to be an anti-cleaver and anti-cleaver only. She seems to be only really good to standard, and your opponent is playing Melanie with no injury. So they're playing pretty much no injury. You can play 3F and you can basically kill Melanie by yourself. Because the idea is that she can keep activating as long as that Al in the back row is not dead. So here's an issue with here's like the biggest weakness I can say for her is if that Al in the back row is dead, this pattern would never activate ever again. So she's a kind of like a one and done type character in most of the long game. Because once this activates, that's it. There's a very low chance that it will activate again. Because if you have a character that somehow survived 4 additional turns, or 4 turns of Moonlight Senya, and she's still pretty decently slow, then that'd be pretty amazing, and your opponent probably kind of minted or kind of trolled, because they probably should have killed him. Because if Senya activated, there's nothing to block your opponent from just running down that last guy in the back and make Senya not be really able to do anything other than be able to naturally skill 3 for single target damage. So she'll never get this 2,500 fixed damage ever again. In terms of like builds, you could probably play speed build. Because you can always try to cycle. I think the best build might just be to counter, because since she has this over punishment, she counters. This over punishment will always do an additional 2,500 fixed damage for every time she counters. And with that idea, you can play counter HP set. You go for the right side here, you go HP HP speed or HP HP HP. It depends on whatever you want. You can go HP. I think HP HP speed is usually better. So you want her to still be able to take a turn. But you can go HP 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 if you think you can somehow sneak in enough speed into that. When it comes to when it comes to artifact, I think the best artifact for her is probably going to be 3F, and that's just because 3F, because she seems to be just there just to one-shot cleave. But she's there to one-shot aggro, she's there to one-shot cleave, so the idea is that why not just put her on like 3F and make her be able to do like additional thousands of, do additional like 3,000 damage every time she counters, or every time she does to S1, or even on S3 she does 10,000 damage. So overall, she's a cool unit. I think I'm going to pull for her. I'm going to attempt to try to get her. Her power seems to be just reliant on that skill 3, being able to skill 2 into a skill 3 at full HP, doing like around 12,000 damage plus 2,500 fist damage, and with 3F plus additional 3,000 fist damage. So that's like around 17,000, which is pretty nuts. Alright, next up, Birgitta. So Birgitta is a Soul Reaver of the Scorpio Zodiac. She has pretty moderate defense, a medium HP, really high base speed, no crit chance, no crit damage. Effectiveness is 30%, which is good, and no effect resistance, and a no dual attack chance, other than the base. Her imprint concentration is 27% effectiveness. Her imprint release is 12.9% attack. The imprint release is not really good. I would rather take a 10.8% attack for the whole team than just 2 allies here. And then the effectiveness is really good for her because as we can kind of assume, she is a debuffing Soul Weaver this time, not another healing, not a healing one. Anyways, her stat line, she shares a stat line with only one other character, which is a Ning Ning, which is as you can guess it, another debuffing Soul Weaver. Okay, skill 3. So she, let's see skill. Nope, I did. Skill 2, Subterfuge. So she dispels 2 debuffs from the ally, increases charming radius by 35 to 50%. Grants an extra turn to your caster. Okay, cool. So she just dispels 2 buffs. she basically has cleansing on the skill 2, and she basically has a Amelia skill 2. That's it. She has an Amelia skill 2 that does not get a type buff, dispels 2 buffs, and grants herself an extra 2. That's actually really strong, because we all know how strong Amelia is. So Amelia is pretty strong. Probably not in recent times because there's better options to either take down or to play aggressively, but even then she's still ridiculously strong. Like if you can slot her into a situation where you can skill 2 with Amelia, grant yourself the attack buff, the cleansing, and then just decide to rip into someone, that's pretty strong. But in this case, she doesn't grant the attack buff, but she grants the extra turn. As you can see, this extra turn here is very powerful. So pretty strong still. It's 3 turn cooldown. That's okay. That's pretty long, especially since there's no decrease. But it's still pretty. It's nice. It's not as bad as good as Amelia. Amelia's skill 2 is only 2 turns, but other than that, it's pretty good. So we can see here she puts it on Milani, even though she doesn't dispel debuff. So she CO pushed Milani by 50%. That's pretty nuts. And of course she grants herself the and of course beat up activates because that's an extra turn. Nothing personnel kid. Okay. Nothing personnel really is crazy. Okay, so nothing personnel kid dispels all buffs from the enemy before 75 to 100% chance to inflict bind and block for 2 turns. So bind is a debuff we all know, even though they don't show here. Bind is a debuff that basically says your opponent cannot activate counter attacks, dual attacks outside of their own turn. Bind basically it means that, and on top of that, bind also means they cannot act when outside their turn. It means any of the skills that do not cleanse before activating a animation, it cannot happen. So basically, it's a pseudo seal of some sort. The only other character with bind in this game is Narkwhal, and bind in itself is a really strong debuff. It allows you to basically, you can bind something like Lionheart. You can't bind Lionheart. You can bind someone like Aeola, so Angel Light Angelica. You can bind Angel Light Angelica. You can do an AoE, and Angel Light Angelica can't cleanse or can't put up skill notes because the cleanse in itself is on the animation. So bind in itself is also really strong against someone like Janua because the cleanse from Janua is on the animation. So what we're seeing here is that she can basically dispel all buffs. She can apply blind, which is really strong, and then she can also apply a new debuff called block. So block is unaffected by any buff, some beneficial effects, dispel debuffs except for when they're granted by the barrier, applies to heroes only. So basically, what this means, it's basically a debuff blocker. It's a debuff protector of some sort. So you put block on an enemy, that enemy can no longer cleanse, that enemy can no longer gain any beneficial effects, including like all the attack buffs, all those random buffs that you can get. They cannot do that anymore. So basically, the only way to really cycle out of the block here, is for someone to just self-cleanse themselves. So there's actually no way to really get rid of block, which is actually ridiculously strong. So, I mean, you can kind of barely see it here in the demo at the very end. You see that Bunny Dom here. Bunny Dom cleanses all debuffs, and then she activates and she puts out immunity, and she puts out a skill null. You see that the Malona here did not activate, did not get cleansed. And that's just because this buff block here is preventing her from getting cleansed in the first place. That's a really strong debuff. So basically it means that this one unit, unless they have a self cleanse, they're literally just sitting there, like, they're sitting there useless. They cannot cleanse themselves. Like, so basically, let's say you put this on someone like a heavy buff team. So you put on someone like I don't know, you put someone on like Abyssal Euphene, you put on someone like Naval Captain Landy, right? Naval Captain Landy can no longer be able to debuff any of this, and she's binded to toe, so she can't counter, which is insane. So that means basically you can do to Melandy, you can do to Abyssal Euphene, you can do to any form of like protest against any one of these characters. That's pretty strong. And then of course the Soulburn is the dreaded ignore effect resistance. This really means you can play ignore effect resistance. You can just literally and then you can literally just, not build any effectiveness and build really tanky with effect resistance and still be able to land that debuff. Oh no, they despoiled it, her artifact grants souls. So, this is no effect resistance. It's gonna happen. You don't have a choice. Oh, I just realized this is a sandbag. Very funny. Okay. Now we see the skill 3 animation. Damn, that's a really nice skill 3 animation. Okay. Skill 1, Baseless Rumors. Attack the enemies, decrease combat radius by 10%. When the target is inflicted with block, doubles the amount of combat radius decrease. Okay. So basically, she puts skill 3 up, she gets additional 10 to 15 or up to 30%. So she gets 10%, 15% decrease combat radius when she has ones, and when they're affected with block, it doubles the CO. So this is actually a really effective. This is a very effective combat radius decrease tool. Like, basically what this means is that you can basically just keep skill wanting like a really slow unit with block, and they can never take a turn. If she's pretty fast, she can basically just keep perma controlling an enemy, because that enemy cannot be cleansed. The enemy can probably still be CO pushed, but the enemy cannot be cleansed. The enemy can be healed. The enemy can be healed, but the enemy cannot even counter. So any of those counter attack units that usually are really slow, they just literally cannot counter. They literally cannot gain the combat radius increase. They literally cannot do anything. They just sit there. And they just 30% combat radius decreases on and on and on. So basically, if your opponent has no CO pushing, and they pick someone like a base speed Melanie, she can basically just perma control them. That's something they can do, because the block prevents any beneficial effects in the first place. And then the bind means Melanie can't counter, means she can't get the CO push to get out of it. and then the basis rumor pushes her back to 30%, so she's lapping pretty fast. She's just going to perma control, and basically Melanie's kind of useless. So this is actually an interesting way to deal with counter based units. And overall, it's a really strong buff. This is actually a pretty strong buff. What's the skill 2? It's actually a non-attack skill. Oh, that's disgusting too. So this is a non-contact full buff strip and bottom block. Oh, so she doesn't even have. She can even bind like someone like Karina if you're playing fast, and she can basically say Karina cannot activate her skill 2 anymore because skill 2 doesn't cleanse at all, and she can and she's blocked, which she can't. She can only grant herself she can't grant herself the defense buff, but since she's blocked, she can't be cleansed. So that bind means she's basically neutral for 2 whole turns, and then she just gets to sit there and basically laugh it off, which is hilarious. And I feel like this also would be really strong against someone like the person in the background with someone like Melanie, not someone with Melanie, with someone like what we saw Dragonfire Senya, because what it means is that you can block the person in the back, and that a Ross barrier will never occur, which is insane. So it's kind of, yeah. And then so basically, Dispel. So basically, this is the big thing. So block is a really special buff, and let's see how this is gonna go for an OTA. But I'm excited. I think this is gonna basically flip the meta, especially we're playing slower now. So this is gonna screw over those people who play a little bit slower, because bind and block duo basically means you just can't do it. That is actually a really sad time. So I mean, Melanie herself loses to this unit. Unless you can somehow CO push Melanie like 10 times or twice before, twice in order to get out of the blind and block, she's just most likely neutered. She can't do anything, which is gonna be really interesting. And let's go look, and then finally let's go look at 1 minute summary update. So we got CBC Birgitta, and then we see the balance changes. So the balance changes, the biggest thing to know, Sage Bounces on is more consistent now. Instead of having a 75% chance to dispel a debuff and then sleep, he has a 100% chance to dispel a debuff and then sleep. It's more consistent. LPK we have to see. LPK now has indoor defense, not indoor defense, indoor damage reductions and damage redirection effects. So this is going to be interesting. Ravi is a really interesting one. Her skill 2 now makes her as an HP scaling, attack scaling unit. So she gains attack proportional to her max HP at the start of battle, and stays like that at the beginning. So basically means she's unaffected by injury, but she is an HP scaling of some sort. Blood Moon Haze is the biggest one. So when an ally dies on his team, Blood Moon Haze now provides immunity, and I think it's immunity, and then another buff. I forget what it was. And she has immunity and barrier, so he grants immunity and barrier to all allies, and then he also grants himself blood mana. So blood mana basically means he can basically do a lot of damage, and then if he kills someone with his skill 3 when he has blood mana, the skill 3 does 100% more damage. He will revive everyone and grant the revived heroes immortality. So that's actually really disgusting. So she basically could be an Inko. So Alexa Basket, we're not gonna talk about Alexa's Basket. They changed it so it's more consistent with the attack buff, but they removed the crit chance, which I think is basically a nerf. So basically, a lot of people have been using Alexa's Basket recently for the crit chance, because you can argue to build a less crit. They have less crit rate on someone like Ron, and you can play more damage. So if you can get the gap and the crit chance on Alexa's Basket from Ron, you can basically just nuke the enemy team. That's basically the thing with Alexa's Basket. But since they changed it, it seems to only be really good on someone like T-Surin or someone like Orbital Vildred now, because it has a higher chance of granting a attack buff, which I think is 0 to 70%. So 70% up to 70% chance of granting attack buff, and then from there they have a 30% chance of granting greater attack buff within the activation. So basically, you have a 70% chance of getting attack buff minimum, and then there's also another 30% chance from there that you get a greater attack buff instead of attack buff. So you have a 70% chance of attack buff, 30% chance of greater attack buff. If you get greater attack buff, it will override the attack buff, even if you got both. And the Abyssal Crown, they just made it more consistent. They increased the stun chance by like 5%. It's not really a big buff. It's just cool because most of the time Abyssal Crown doesn't work. it happens and then it just does nothing. Like most of the time, I play on Abyssal on Politis, and it literally does nothing. It just sits there and it just acts pretty. It's a cool artifact that sometimes works and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it gets 4 man stun. Okay, we have Ancient Inheritance. Stay tuned. Ancient Inheritance. It's time to start it off again. And then here's the big one. So as an OTA player, ban protection on the 3rd slot. That is a very interesting. Okay, we don't question why Little Bit is a water mage with 44 stars. We don't question that. Okay, we all know Little Bit was a water mage. She's cool. Alright, World Arena ban protection. So they added ban protection for the 3rd slot. That's actually really cool. So the 3rd slot is basically what I usually would call is the pivot point and the lock point. So basically when you see the 3rd pick, you can kind of determine what your opponent's playing. So like let's say they pick like the normal crabs. They pick Bishop Euphane first, and they pick Crimson Norman, right? And then let's say the third pick ends up being, I don't know, Lila, right? That basically means they're locked in. They're playing crabs. They're playing a Bishop Euphane with Lila, and they're playing a Lila Bishop Euphane combo, and then with a Bishop with Crimson Almond as a take. So the third, but since Lila's in the third place slot, she can no longer be kicked out because you can no longer ban the third slot. So this is going to open up a lot of things, and also the biggest one here, um, it opens up, uh, basically it kind of, I would argue, it kind of gives away the disadvantage of being second pick, because when you play first pick, you pick first here, right? Your opponent gets to pick two, and then as the first pick player, you have to lock in the third unit. Once you lock in that third unit, it cannot be banned. But that third unit has to be good enough where it will beat the first two, and it will beat whoever your opponent picks third. Because that third unit now, for your opponent as a second pick player, can no longer be banned. It could be anyone, and if that unit cannot be banned and screws up the top three, you probably already lost. So basically, this puts advantage as first pick advantage. You have the opportunity to dictate the speed of the game. You can play cleave, you can play slow, you can play fast, like you can play aggro, or you can play takedown. You get to dictate your speed that you want to play. If you play cleave, you dictate your opponent that they either have to speed race you or they have to play really slow. You can dictate that. That is the big thing. But as a second pick, your entire job is to respond to your opponent. Your opponent needs to play. They need to be able to play like, you have to be able to play slow. You have to be able to play fast. Depending on what your opponent's like tink down. You can play fast. And you can start aggroing them down. So basically, what we'll be seeing here is that this is actually somewhat of like a middle ground for the slower and the faster players, because it means as first pick, if you play fast, you have to safeguard someone really important here first, and it will be obvious what you're doing. And then as a second player, you get to respond to that safeguard pick by picking a unit that basically just wins on the spot. So let's just say they pick, for some reason they pick Moonlight Ludwig, and they did not ban blind. You can just lock in a blind here, and their opponent is screwed because now this blind is always gonna come through. She's gonna make sure your opponent always has 0 souls. That is an insane idea. But of course, people are not gonna just always. They're gonna ban blind. If you're playing Ludwig, you don't have to ban blind. It's a requirement. But even then, you can pick someone like an anti-Kuval. You can pick Karina here. You can pick Aiden here. You can pick even then, the new one. You can pick Dragon Bride Senya here. You can pick Birgitta. You can pick Knockwall. So your opponent's playing really slow. They're playing Melanie. They're playing a bit of Unifada. You lock in Knockwall, and your opponent can't do anything about it because Knockwall basically shuts down half that team, and that's the power of second pick. Of course, from there, it also means if you were the fast player, you pick Knockwall first, and the opponent picks B-Dom, you're out of luck. B-Dom is just gonna cancel it out on Knockwall. That basically gives more advantage to the second player. So the second player no longer disadvantaged from being second in the pick order because they don't get to pick whoever they want. They don't get to dictate the speed of the game, which is kind of interesting. Overall, I think I like this pick. I like this safeguard slot. Of course, now if ever needed to, somebody can always move it up, move it down, depending on what the meta is. If this third slot becomes too powerful, they may just move this slot down here, and it ends up being a little bit harder to be able to tell what they're doing. Or they can move it up. They can say, okay, like first, second pick. Like they can probably move this one up right here. They can say only a second pick for this one and third pick of that. Alright. But of course, I think this is a really best middle ground because it means that the first pick, this third pick here becomes basically it flips the draft around by its head in the mid draft phase, because it means that now the second pick player actually technically becomes like the first pick player because they get to first pick into a team to counter off the team. That's a very strong skill. Otherwise, drop banners. These are baits. Don't go for these. Like Moana, Tywin, Tasha Records. Unless you're really missing them. No. Avalon, Double Edged Desecrant, And then Birgitta is strong, but she's not a limited hero, so it's not really recommended to go for her because we may be getting a limited hero in the future. Who knows? Mr. Summer Rotation, Dragon Blade Senya with Crescent Moon Red. Crescent Moon Red is really good, but Dragon Blade Senya might be really good. It's gonna depend on how much HP what you build on it. If you build like 40,000, that's gonna be pretty funny, and you're gonna basically screw over. Anyways, I hope you liked the 35-minute explanation of the new patch for this for the upcoming patch. And anyways, good luck out there, and I'll see you in Ancient Inheritance.